All right, so this Marlins series, just with my schedule, didn't really align for me to like lock in on all three Marlins games. So instead of doing my normal live show after the series, I figured, with the deadline coming up, we are now almost a week away. Almost a week. Tomorrow will be a week away from the 2025 MLB trade deadline. I think it's a good time to just go through the latest Padres trade rumors, which it's been a pretty heavy day with that, the team needs, the strengths, the weaknesses. There was a Padres fan, apologies, I forget who it was, but someone on social media messaged me, or maybe it was in the comments. It was like, they'd love for me to do like literally this, where you break down the needs, the strengths, the weaknesses, the rumors, that sort of thing. And I'm like, well, today I think that's a pretty good day to do it. So let's do it. Before getting to the rumors part, I think let's start with the team needs, the strengths, the weaknesses. And I think it's pretty obvious what those are. I mean, the needs would be what the weaknesses are, and you want another bat, maybe a couple, but definitely want another bat. Now, initially, I thought it was going to be, yeah, you want a left field bat because you want Gavin Sheets to DH, but he's gotten more comfortable out there, and so I think that's made the job maybe a little bit easier or increased the options for AJ Preller and his front office before this deadline because they can have Sheets go play left field almost every day and have Merrill in center, Tatis in right, and then that opens up stuff. There's been Jake Cronenworth rumors about the Padres. Teams have shown interest in Jake Cronenworth. Uh, you could take that as, well, who is feeding that information to Kevin? Is that because the Padres want to like try to get some bidding increased on Jake Cronenworth to try to unload that contract, free up some money? And if that happens, then you could move a rise to second, bring in a first base bat, or you could bring in another second baseman. You could bring in, this wouldn't happen this year, but eventually have Bogarts be at second base. Arise, we'll see what his future is, obviously. DeVries, not next year, definitely not the beginning of next year, but at some point he will take over at shortstop, you would think. But that was something that was out there that I should at least mention with Crony yesterday. I think it was yesterday that Kevin, or maybe it was Dennis that reported these reports. This next week, I'm going to give credit on social media when I see the report, obviously, like who did it, and I'll link the article like I always do. But when I'm talking right now, sometimes it's hard to remember who actually said what. I'm scrolling back down. Dennis Lynn is who said it. See, so I got that wrong initially. This was yesterday. Jake Cronenworth continues to attract trade interest. I think there's some fans that would love to get this contract out. But I'm more of a fan, like, I have emotions as a Padres fan. And so seeing Jake go, that would be sad. Um, I still think that he can help this team go, get to that promised land. But again, like, if you can find a way to unload that, it does increase your options. You can bring in more of a power bat to play first base, and you can have a Rise play second base for the rest of the year. There's a Glacius that's on the roster. Like, there are some things here you can do. So there's that. Now, other needs. The Padres are shopping, that's been a report. The Padres are shopping for another reliever. Now, would that mean that they deal Robert Suarez because he has an option after this year, may not come back, probably hitting free agency? Would they bring him back on a big deal? Probably not. So maybe you go acquire a more of a controllable reliever, and it could be like a Suarez could be like this year's Tanner Scott, where you have him for the rest of this year. He could be great for you, and then he goes somewhere else. Hopefully not the Dodgers, but you get my point. But they already have the four big relievers, but if they can add another one, I feel like it would be worth it. I mean, you have a strong bullpen in October, it really helps your chances of getting far. If you don't have a strong bullpen, any team that doesn't have a strong bullpen on paper, I mean, my opinion doesn't matter, but like, I eliminate them on paper from winning because it's just, you're not going to get consistent long innings all the time from your starting pitching. You need that bullpen. So the Padres do have that. They had that last year. It wasn't the bullpen that failed them, it was the offense. So yes, a couple bats, I would think. You want to upgrade the catching position, obviously, offensively, but I'm leaning more towards that that's not going to happen because Mike Schilt really values having the catchers. Like having those two catchers, Maldonado and Diaz, having them in sync with the pitching staff. Like the Padres really value that, regardless of if someone's hitting 150 or what, and they're hitting ninth in the order and they're not really producing. Although Maldonado has helped a little bit recently, so props to him for that. But they have one of the league's best pitching staffs. Do you want to mess with that by bringing someone in that may give you more offense when you could go acquire more offense in another position that wouldn't mess with the pitching staff? That would be their case. That would be Mike Schultz's case to be like, no, let's not mess with this. Let's keep this how it is. And yeah, there's that. Starting pitching, yeah. I haven't heard a lot though of like the Padres being interested in, um, you know, a lot of starting pitching names. There's been a few. Dennis Lynn wrote today, pretty recently in the Athletic, Sandy Alcantara is someone the Padres have shown interest in, but AJ shows interest in like everyone. So don't, maybe you overreact if you're a fan, but you probably shouldn't. I did see as well that I think it was John Heyman reported. Let me try to find this. I think it was John Heyman that reported that. No, it was Buster Olney. The Padres have talked to the Orioles about Charlie Morton. So maybe the plan is to add a starter like Morton if Dylan Cease is dealt for other assets. And if you deal Dylan Cease, the Red Sox have been mentioned just by fans as like maybe because they'd have an opportunity to extend him, give him an offer of a big contract. The Padres aren't going to do that. Maybe you could get a Jarren Duran. Now, it's not just Cease for Duran, but you get what I'm saying. Some of the package could be like a Jarren Duran back to help your offense. And he's good defensively as well. So we'll see about that. There's other rumors that I will get to, obviously, but I just wanted to touch on those needs. You look at the rotation right now, King mid-August, hopefully. You got Darvish, you got Pivetta, you got Cease for now. He's been up and down. Kolek, there was a reason last year why they kept him on the roster, Rule 5, and I think part of it was they were looking forward and they were like, let's try this guy as a starting pitcher. Let's see what he can do. And now we're seeing it. And he's had some good moments. Randy Vasquez has had good moments for this team. He's not going long in games, which, like, if you're Mike Schilt, if you're going to get, I'm not saying he is, but if you're going to complain at some point about your bullpen and not being able to throw those high leverage guys out there all the time, which Morejon and Adam, I think, going into this unofficial second half, were like third in innings, or maybe first. Kevin Acee, it was like top 3 for sure in appearances or innings by a reliever in baseball. So they're getting a lot of work. If you don't want to keep doing that, then probably let the starting pitcher, get a couple more outs to get out of an inning instead of bringing in, Morejon or whoever to, just because you like that matchup more. Sometimes, like, let's see if this guy can get out of it, depending on score, right? But yeah, I think Vasquez, I think he could be left in a little bit longer in these games, but I'm not the manager. I'm just a fan. Strengths, I would say top of the lineup. You have MVP caliber player like Manny Machado. You have the talent like Jackson Merrill and Fernando. Xander, I want to give a huge shout out to him. Entering today, his last 30 games, he has an OPS of over 900. What was the exact stat? Let me see. This was entering today. I know they lost to the Marlins, but he's hitting 349 with a 955 OPS, 10 RBI, and 3 homers in his last 30 games. So I know that people have gotten on him, and I think a lot of it is because of that contract, which is unfair. I think you should lower your expectations. He's not a $280 million player. That's the money that was offered to him. You can't blame him for taking that money. But like having that type of production, I'm not saying that's going to happen the rest of the year or in October to have a 950 OPS, but that sort of talent, Gavin Sheets I'll throw in there. Luis Ariz, obviously, in some situations with the contact bat, I hope that he'd be able to come through. Um, I think Crony's had a pretty decent year, decent stretches for sure. Um, that top of the order, I think that's definitely a strength of this team. I think their defense is a strength. Um, I saw some people on social media like thinking that Manny was hurting the team defensively this year, and maybe there are numbers that indicate that. So I guess that they could say that they're correct on that. But my eye test, yes, he's had some errors. Yes, there's been some where it's like, oh yeah, Manny, he's probably not probably he should make that play, and I'm not used to him botching that play. But I don't know. Is there another third baseman I'd rather have on my team than Manny Machado? Am I biased? Yes, but I mean the guy has the whole package. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about him. Um, other strengths: top of the rotation, back end of the bullpen, obviously. The rotation, having Nick Pivetta. Oh my goodness, Darvish. We know the talent is there. I think just giving him some more time here. I think he is allowed to have a little bit of a leash here. Give him some time to get back in the flow of things. Michael King was one of the best pitchers in baseball when he was healthy. So, hopefully we can have him come back and him pitch well. And then there could be another starting pitching addition. And then we're like, oh man, we've got who knows if we have Cease, but let's say we have Cease. He's had some moments, but if we have Cease, I'm not sticking him at the top. It would be Pavetta, it would be King, it would be Darvish, and then it would be the starter we acquire and then Cease probably, and that's your five. So I mean, I guess it depends who the starter is, obviously, but I just don't trust Cease in big games. Prove me wrong, please, Dylan. Prove me wrong, but I just can't right now. So I think that's part of the weakness of this team. Obviously, bottom of the order, Wandy Peralta in the bullpen. He's actually been pretty good lately. Um, Not pretty good, been like really good. Kevin had a really good stat in his Padres Daily this morning, about Wandy, I believe. Um, I think one of the strengths is this coaching staff for sure. I know that's not on the field, but it definitely has an impact. So I think the strengths do outweigh the weaknesses in terms of like this team's ability to be a postseason team. But do the weaknesses outweigh the strengths when it comes postseason time? If that makes sense, against other teams. And, how big are their weaknesses? How big are their strengths? Do those offset in favor of them? If that makes sense. So that's what I've got with strengths, weaknesses, needs. Uh, Latest Padres rumors. This was a pretty heavy rumor day. Yesterday, Hector Gomez tweeted out about the Padres being really interested in Marcell Ozuna. He even mentioned a couple names. I think I want to say Ryan Bergert was on one of the names. Let me find that tweet because I'm pretty sure I quote tweeted it. Yeah. He hasn't taken down the tweet. It's gotten over 300,000 views. This was, yeah, last night. Trade talks between Padres and Braves. And by the way, he said source. He doesn't say sources. He said source. There's a difference there. Trade talks between Padres and Braves have intensified. The Padres are very interested in landing Marcell Ozuna. According to the source, the Braves would receive Padres number 18 prospect Francis Pena and number 21 prospect, Ryan Berger. Ryan Berger's been on the show. That was great to see him in the big leagues this year. When I see specific names thrown out there, I'm like, all right, maybe there's something to this. Hector Gomez has been correct on some things. But I listened to Section 1904, Darren Smith, John Gennaro, and if you have not subscribed, I definitely recommend that you subscribe. I think it's like, yeah, I subscribe, so I would know it. $5 a month, like it's nothing. And they do great. I enjoy it. That's like my number one podcast to go to every day, just the first one. But anyway, Darren Smith, who has connections with the Padres, obviously, he was talking to, I forget if it was someone, I'm not quoting him, but I'm just telling you what I heard essentially him say today about the Ozuna stuff. He talked to people or a person with the Padres, again, I forget if it was multiple people or I'm pretty sure it was multiple people. He was saying that what Hector Gomez did there last night with those names being mentioned and Ozuna and the interest, that was completely fabricated. Darren said the two words completely fabricated on the show today. So I'm going to believe Darren. Darren's been on the show. I love listening to Darren. I respect him so much. And I have no reason to believe that he is wrong on this. And he was even saying, and again, I'm not quoting him, but he was saying he followed that with like, Ozuna's not even on the Padres list, which makes sense. Like the Padres, they're not looking to add to payroll. They could try to subtract, right? And get, a little bit creative that way. So, yeah. Ozuna, by the way, last year of his deal, is that power potential? Yes. But one, you take into account the human side of things and what he's done in the past. If you don't know, you can look it up. That's not someone I want in my clubhouse. But it is sports, it is a business, and if he's going to help you win baseball games, then some people will just turn a blind eye to it and let him stroll right in. But I would not be the biggest fan of acquiring Marcell Ozuna, but it seems like that's not going to happen. He's not even on the Padres list, so we can just kind of throw that one out. Bye. Other things that have been thrown out there that I've seen. Jeff Passan wrote something. He didn't connect. I think it was like every team, and he mentioned Luis Robert Jr. with the Padres as like best fit. But he didn't like. There wasn't like reporting there really that we didn't know about. So I'm not even really like looking at the Passan article. Kevin Acee today, Padres Daily this morning. There is all sorts of chatter around the league about the Padres looking to swing big at the trade deadline to land a player who can give them some big swings. As I noted earlier in the week, it appears their deadline machinations will involve unloading some salary as well. See, like that's where the Ozuna thing doesn't make sense. Swing big at the trade deadline, land a player who can give them some big swings. Who could that be? Big swings. Not the people the Padres were connected to today. John Heyman says many teams are calling about all-star left fielder Steven Kwan, but while the Guardians are listening on him and their relief stars Emmanuel Clase and apologies, I don't know the first name of this guy, Smith. Understandably, it would have to be quite a compelling offer. Cleveland also has a favorable closing schedule. And then he quote tweeted that, said Phillies and Padres are among many teams interested in Kwan. Maybe some people would look at that and be like, oh, Steven Kwan, another like slap lefty, bring another Luis Horizon here. Is that really what this lineup needs? Only got 6 home runs this year. OPS isn't even like that like eye-popping. 741 is OPS plus 106. Though the average is there, 285. His WAR's 2.8. He would definitely slot in as, the left fielder, could play left field. 3 Gold Gloves, like that would be that definitely you could have an argument for that being the best outfield in the big leagues. Tatis, Merrill, and Steven Kwan. But if you're looking for more power, are you getting that from Steven Kwan at Petco Park? The answer is probably no. And what would you be giving up for that, right? And if you're acquiring Kwan and putting him in left field, then you're putting Sheets at DH every day, limiting your flexibility there. You could put Sheets at first. If they trade Crony, you could have Sheets play first or Rice play second, and then have a DH or bring in a first baseman and have DH be Sheets. I'm not the biggest fan of acquiring Steven Kwan. Is he talented? Yeah. Maybe for next year's team, but I feel like this year's team, needs that power bat, and Steven Kwan is not in that category. By the way, going back to the Ozuna thing, Mark Bowman, who covers the Braves, he said, according to my sources, the Braves and Padres haven't had any discussions of any kind about Marcell Ozuna. And that was way earlier this morning. That was before I even listened to the Section 1904 podcast with Darren. So there you have that. Buster Only tweeted Padres have talked to the Orioles about Charlie Morton, so maybe the plan is, I already said this, but maybe the plan is to add a starter like Morton if Cease is dealt for other assets. Um, Charlie Morton, wow, reminds me of Rich Hill because Rich Hill still pitching. He's like what 45 and he's pitching still. Good for him. I liked how he was a real competitor. I know it didn't work out here, but when we got him, like I knew that we were going to get a competitor and there was going to be some entertaining moments. All I remember was me like clipping his reactions, like the F bombs when he gave up a bomb. Like you could totally see it. Like he was not hiding anything. Charlie Morton this year, by the way, don't think he would cost too much. 5.58 ERA. He's got a negative WAR. 15 starts, 21 games. A little more strikeouts than innings. 92 strikeouts, 88 and 2/3 innings. Yeah, I mean that breaking ball, if I remember correctly, it's nasty. Can be nasty. I don't know how nasty it is now, but it was nasty when he was with the Braves. That would be a depth starter. How much of a need is that for the Padres, though? They could just go with Vasquez. Like if you're getting a starting pitcher, I feel like I want it to be someone that can slot ahead of Dylan Cease. If that makes sense. Eventually, you want Dylan Cease to go, back over that guy. But in terms of like my confidence level in big games, if you get King back and you have Darvish, you have Pavetta, you have hopefully someone they acquire, and you have Cease, confidence level, I want it to be Cease 5 and then someone else slot in. That probably comes off me being a Dylan Cease hater, but to me, this pitcher is probably not going to be more talented than Dylan Cease. I know Dylan Cease is really talented, but just someone that I could trust in a big game. And you're probably like, well, Ben, give me a list of guys. It's AJ Preller. Like, I don't. Has he checked in on Edward Cabrera, the guy that just totally, was nasty on Padres hitters this series in Miami? He probably has. If he checked in on Alcantara, it's the same guy that you're talking to with the Marlins now, right? Peter Bendix is his name. So, yeah. Let me look at Charlie Morton's Baseball Savant page. Charlie Morton. Let's see if. Oh, yeah. Holy cow. There's no red on here. So, yeah. I don't think it would cost much. So, maybe we'll see Charlie Morton be a Padre. Kind of like Rich Hill. The other, what was that, a couple years ago? So, yeah. That's what I saw deadline wise today and recent days. But yeah, starting pitching, it doesn't seem like a catcher. Left field, I'm sure you're going to keep hearing the Jarren Duran talk. John Heyman did say the other day on MLB Network that, and John has been wrong on stuff, obviously, but he did say the other day, like, he would be surprised if Duran was traded. If Duran's traded, he would be surprised if it was to a team that wasn't named the Padres, is essentially what he said. I did want to give a Musgrove update. This was also from Kevin AC. Joe Musgrove expects to throw his first full-intensity bullpen session next week. He plans to be available to work an inning or two out of the bullpen by the time the postseason begins. So, I'm not quoting him in this article, but I do remember reading in this article that Musgrove, he's a little bit ahead of schedule, which could be good. I hope it couldn't be bad, but it could be if this process gets rushed. But then, like, even when I say that, I feel like I'm rushing too far to the side of like acting as if I know what Tommy John recovery looks like, and I don't. All right, enough rambling from me. That's what I've got. I'm sure you have thoughts in the comments. The Padres, they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Marlins, and now they've got the Cardinals coming up in St. Louis before they're finally back home. Obviously, had the All-Star break and then a 3-city road trip before coming back home to face, I think, the Mets. So it's been a while.